Welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. Today it's my pleasure to have IAS Kalpana Gopalan ma'am on our show. Dr. Kalpana is the Additional Chief Secretary in the Government of Karnataka and is also a renowned speaker and a scholar. Thank you very much, ma'am, for agreeing to this interview and welcome to the Prode.
It's my pleasure, Ritvich. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, ma'am. So, as we all know, that there has been a lot of debates on e-governance in the time of pandemic. So, ma'am, recently we have seen a huge shift from traditional governance to e-governance. So, what are your views on it, and do you think it's beneficial?
Okay, like any tool, and particularly technological tools, e-governance has its pros and cons. One might say that pandemic has brought digitalization to the fore, not just in governance, but in all aspects of society. Today, more and more people are becoming comfortable with online shopping, for example. Uh, with reference to COVID-19, we were collecting humongous amounts of data from the health and the medical sectors, and that humongous amount of data had to be collated, made sense of, cleaned, and then decisions taken. And this would not have been possible without using technological tools. So that is one side of the picture, that it helps us to collect and work on huge amounts of data. On the other hand, one has to be always wary while using technological tools for social transformation. There is, I am still of the old fashioned view that there is no substitute for presence. Now, when you start using technological tools, the two linkages become very important: the frontline and the backroom worker. So the frontline worker, if you take the pandemic, you have the ASHA worker, you
Yeah.
have the doctors, you have the paramedics who are actually administering either the medicine or the vaccine or doing their inspections. That feedback loop should reach the backroom worker who is making sense of this all, then presenting it in a way where decisions can be taken. I find that much is lost in translation. And because now you see, just think of this, in
Yeah.
government, since you asked about e-governance, in government normally, you have a secretary at the top, then you have a head of department, you have people down the line who are working, but they're all part of a single hierarchy. So let us say if I am the health secretary, then I get my feedback from my medical staff. And
Yeah.
I give my instructions back to those staff who in turn implement it on the field. But what is happening now? You have an ASHA worker who is collecting the information, giving it to a technical guy who is, adept at who is computer savvy. The decisions are taken by health administrators or doctors at the apex of the hierarchy, or politicians at the apex of the hierarchy, and then it has to percolate down back to the field to the same paramedics or ASHA workers who then have to implement. So you see the number of people involved who are all from different spheres, which
Yeah.
who function in silos, who don't talk to each other. Now we should find a way where there is a loop by which that communication is kept alive, kept clear, so that both feedback is right and the decisions take place. So that is an important step which we need to do, which means very painstaking and putting in place such structures. So there's a tremendous and huge advantage, but we need to be able to use the tool properly.
Okay. So, ma'am, but according to Hindustan Times, only 77.7% of Indians are literate, and according to IMOB, only 60% of Indians will use smartphones by 2025. So, do you think e-governance is a bit difficult for older generations and people of rural backgrounds?
Uh, I think we underestimate our population. We, we took to mobile telephony, with alacrity. And now you can hardly find In any corner of India, you find mobile phones. Not always smartphones, perhaps. I feel that our people are able to adapt themselves very quickly to use technology. They may not understand the workings of technology, but from the user interfaces are clear, they are able to do it. Now, let me tell you one experiment which I had done very long ago, before digitalization and smartphones became fashionable. This was in the way back in the early 2000s, where I was director mass education, which meant adult and non-formal education. And we were working through CEC centers, continuing education centers spread across Karnataka. So I opened some 30,000 such centers across Karnataka. We did a simple experiment where we had a kiosk, a computer kiosk. Instead of teaching alphabet or other literacy through a stand-up teacher, we did have a stand-up teacher, but we used this as a supplement where we used graphic images. The software was installed into the computer, and the computers were available in not all the centers but many centers. And you found that adult learners, I mean not aged learners, but adult learners who were middle aged, were able to use it and learn from them. So it is always possible to experiment with these and this, but the thing is reach, because it could become prohibitively costly. And the second thing is that the infrastructure is not always available. So we could still have a software, but whether we have the connectivity for online classes. So that is where we need to focus on today. So it is possible with the aged now. My parents are 90 plus. They are able to use smartphones. Okay, I mean, they had not seen a smartphone maybe until 5 or 6 years ago, but now they are able to use it, at least in a, when the need arises, they use it. It's not
Yeah.
their most comfortable means of communication, but if it is necessary, then they are able to find a way to use it. So it is just a matter of, getting familiar. None of us were familiar with smartphones some time ago.
Yeah.
Today we are able to use it. So it's the same thing.
Okay, so coming to privacy, so people are concerned over security, fear of spam from providing their details. So there is also a
Mhm.
concern about the privacy of data being collected as a part of UID project. So what are your views on it? Do you think the government uses citizens' data for their use or benefits? How good or how bad it is?
See, again, like any tool, there are advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah,
This is something which worries me too, because privacy is important. The consciousness of privacy is not yet percolated to all parts of our society. So we are not always, even in our non-online lives, we are
yeah,
not that privacy conscious, you see. So here it becomes doubly important because it can be misused in multiple ways. So my own take on this is that we should use the tool to the utmost, because it carries benefits which we cannot otherwise. We cannot reach literacy to our population. We cannot reach healthcare to our population as effectively as we can using digital tools. You know that there's that Arvind Eye Hospital in Madurai, where they have simply perfected the art of doing all kinds of eye treatment and eye care using online tools. So we should make full use of the potential. At the same time, we should build in safeguards. That becomes extremely necessary, whether we are conscious of it or not. At the present juncture, we should anticipate for the future and build in such privacy mechanisms. And I think privacy education also becomes very important. Cyber security education becomes very important. And above all, personal ethics.
yeah,
And this is oft forgotten, because we think that technology will solve everything. We are forgetting our roots, where dharma was the most important thing for
yeah,
us. Nobody asked you, whether you are tech savvy or whether you can ride a horse properly, but dharma was important, and ethics is all important in our society. We are an ethical people who are forgetting that, and we need to come back to that. And that, in fact, if all of us did our job properly, ethically, and without misusing, without cheating or defrauding anyone else, then I think much of your problems will be solved. But it sounds corny. For a generation which has grown up on computers, it looks like computers are corny. computers is the answer to everything. No, it's the human mind and the human heart which are the answer
Yeah.
to everything, and we need to work on that. We need to begin at school level. Many of our problems would be sorted out. It
Okay.
sounds maybe noble and idealistic, but it's the most practical tool available, I think, to me, to my eyes.
Okay, ma'am. But recently, confidential information on military veterans were compromised when a computer containing their personal information was lost. So this type of incidents can vanish trust and user confidence in the government system. So do you think that
Yes.
trust is a critical factor limiting the adoption of e-government services?
Yes. Overall, we are both a trusting and a non-trusting society. We have a society which is entirely based on trust.
Yeah.
You have, if you look at rural India, it lives as a community. It is not always a hunky-dory community, but everybody knows everyone else. Everyone can anticipate, and where need arises, they can come together. In urban India, we are more disparate, dispersed. We have also remember that in government we have inherited a colonial heritage, so there is that suspicion of the the other, which is
Yeah.
also there. I feel it is not inherent to to our society, but in our systems, somehow it has found a place. Now, when every time you make a transition from a non-trusting to a trusting society, there are bound to be some hiccups. Because if you build an edifice based on trust, then someone will misuse it, and then the whole thing collapses. Which is why again I come back that in terms of building ethics, I think that is the core. Difficult as it seems or corny as it sounds, also I feel that we are little casual about many things, especially in
Yeah.
our work. We think that chalta hai.
Yeah.
In Bangalore, where I live, there's that very famous phrase, swalpa adjust madi, please adjust a little bit. So I will not give my full, but you please adjust.
Yeah.
That attitude should go. We should learn to deliver the best, not be casual. Then this theft, this the more care you take about your systems, the stronger your structure will be. So fundamentally, these are things which the way we work, the way we think, that has to be modified. Systems and structures will come.
Okay. Coming to the employment. So what are your views on the employment opportunities of people, entrepreneurs, including village level women entrepreneurs after e-governance? Like what will change?
We are going to, I think, go massively online, but I COVID-19 has accelerated the pace.
Yeah.
However, it has accelerated the pace like never before. But now there will be a little step back and we'll move into a more gradual mode. That is what I anticipate. All of us need to, then become both tech savvy and continuous learners so as to constantly reinvent ourselves. The tech sector alone will open up opportunities both in the urban and the rural sector, because you remember those old days where farmer had to write a letter maybe to his brother who lived elsewhere, and he used to go to the only literate person in the village and ask him to write on the postcard. So you will have no. This is what happened. He had his feeling. He knew what he wanted to say. He needed someone to write it down and then post it for him. You will have a similar thing. You'll have these, e-translators, those who can help people navigate their way through this maze of online and computer technology. And those boys and girls will find employment in the rural sectors which are not that familiar. And I have tremendous faith in the Indian people. They will find more and newer ways in which they can adapt those new technologies and also find employment for themselves. But on the whole, I would say that all of us need to not only, and in the urban sector, I think all of us need not only to become continuous learners, but also get used to freelancing, because you are going to have a system where these organizations, which used to be verticals, would now become horizontal. In government, we already find, though it doesn't appear to you from the outside, government is still a multilithic structure. It's not a vertical structure. Now, if I, for example, if I need to, hold a conference, I held a conference for all the ministers and the bureaucrats of the southern states a couple of years ago. And merely for the logistics, I had to talk with the transport corporation to arrange the transport, the protocol to receive, the guest houses to be able to arrange the rooms and accommodation for them, the advertisers to make, create publicity to different departments so that liaison officers are available to take the guests around. So for a simple matter like a conference, I had to interact with about 5 to 6 departments. So government to an extent is horizontal, though it doesn't appear from the outside. Private sectors are largely verticals. We need now, what would happen now is that there would be more and more horizontalization, and you will have people from across teams. So let us say someone like you with some technical knowledge, someone like me with some public policy knowledge, someone else, let us say, who knows rural India, will all come together to form a solution. Some domain sector expert. And once that job is done, we'll probably move on to other things.
Yeah.
So this kind of thing will happen where all of us will have to get used to freelancing. That is good and bad. You will not have the kind of permanency and job security which you had,
Yeah.
but you will have the choice of interacting and working with those whom you like, instead of being imprisoned in an organizational structure where you may not be happy and there is no other option except to quit. So that is not there now. You just come together for a job, you'll finish the job, and then you'll move on to other things. So
Yeah.
I think that's the way it's going to go.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. So, but e-governance has some very important, like citizen-centric initiatives, like direct benefit transfer, DigiLocker, national scholarship portals, etc. But most of the
Yeah.
population, especially the rural ones, are not aware of these initiatives. Do you think that the government lack funding in advertising and marketing on these kinds of important initiatives?
We do spend for IEC activities, okay, information, education, and communication. A part of the budget is always set aside. That said, it is never enough. So it is even in the urban sector, everybody may not know. Many people ask me to come and speak, and they will ask me questions which are already available on the website. Let us say agriculture. They want to know something about agriculture. They'll be asking me questions which are already available on the agriculture department's website.
Yeah.
So I only become a kind of conduit to take that information and pass it on to them. People don't know where to look. People think it is not available, but a lot of information is available. The government also needs to work on updating that information so that when you are looking at something online on screen, that should be authentic. It should not be 5-year-old information. So that is
Yeah.
something we need to work on. Now there is a lot of differential there. Some departments are very updated, some are not. So we
Yeah.
need to work on that. We also need to build on a massive publicity campaign, not using traditional media, but using, as I said, these young boys and girls who can then, who can act as communicators.
Yeah.
Who best will rural youth learn from than youth of their own kind? You see, so it should be youth for youth, yuva for yuva. And then, somebody, rather than learn from someone like me, people would like to learn from someone like you, especially the younger generation. So we need to work on that, where we need, the human interface. To merely expect that someone will go and look at the click of the buttons and, read up whatever is what they want, that is, that segment of the population, not everybody. So I think we need to work on building communicators across, maybe college students. I was till recently head of the NSS in Karnataka, and we have a vast army of NSS volunteers who are used to doing service on a shoestring budget. So we should use people like them,
Yeah.
and
Even
they enjoy
yeah,
working.
even
Yes.
even government is coming, like even government is doing partnership with young startups, young private
Yes.
startups, or college startups
Yes.
to like market
Yes.
things and to advertise things. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So does government, so do many educational institutions. You have many incubators. ISR cell, which is an incubator for startups. We also, recently I spoke to women entrepreneurs who were, going on taking training from IIM Bangalore. So you have, all these larger institutions should step out of their ivory towers. That includes government also. Large
Correct.
organizations should start sharing. Then only that, the old adage of lab to land really becomes possible.
Okay, ma'am. But India is a diverse country where language changes every 15 to 20 kilometers. Like with such a diverse background, culture, and languages, do you think citizens might face language problems while using computerized service, as most of the applications and websites are either in English or in Hindi?
I look at it from a completely opposite perspective. You are looking at the diversity. Forget India of 1947. Forget
Okay.
British India also. Think of the India of Adi Shankara. There was no entity called India, but there was a
India.
cultural consciousness which
Yeah.
unified all of us. So, in fact, rather than see, something which is fragmented, I see us as an example of triumph of unity in this multifarious scenario. You may speak a different language from me. Your color is different. Just think, just the single issue of color, how controversial it has become in USA. It is just one thing, one
One thing.
difference,
Yeah.
that of color. But look at me and look at you. We don't have the same color.
No.
And in India, you have what? Not black and white. You have every shade of ranging from very fair to very dark. And
And
we have managed to live through all of them, live with
and
everyone.
no Black Lives Matter movement in our country. No
And
movement like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But see, we have managed to retain that unified cultural consciousness in spite of tremendous diversity of language, of things do divide us, caste, religion, but we also have managed to find that there is an Indianness. Even before the word India was perhaps known to all of us, we had that, that single consciousness, and our saints have propagated it, our leaders have said the same thing,
Yeah.
and we as a people, the kind of acceptance which I have gone to so many parts of India, very remote. They embrace you. Why should they embrace you with their affection and love? Because there is that connection which we all feel. So I feel that rather than be daunted by the diversity, I take courage from that kind of consciousness which is a unified thing. Computers make it easier, not more difficult, because basically computer speaks a single language,
Yeah.
the binary language. All you need to be is to be able to understand it and then translate it. It again, like any tool, it has its pros and cons. It is up to us to use it properly. But I don't feel that this is going to really pose a problem, because I see us as a unified nation who managed to live together for so many years despite all our differences.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving us the time, and thank you so much for the insights you shared.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ritwij. We wish you all the best, and
Thank
let's hope we meet again.
thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.